For me, what stood out not only in this game but in the previous game against Alabama, and a little bit just this in conference play, is that State has not had that same defensive intensity and identity that it had a season ago. You know, they gave up 82 points to Bama, 90 points last night. South Carolina shot the ball really well on them. Second half, Tennessee shot the ball really well on them. State last year, you know, if you had told me that State was going to get 77 points in a game, I would have said, well, they won easily because I know they didn't give up more than 70. And they just don't seem to have that as much this year. They don't have that same identity, that same make it dirty, make the game ugly kind of way to play games. It feels like they want to play a more traditional style and get up and down the court, but they still don't have the shooters for that. I like what I saw from Trey Fort last night. I think he is earning more minutes every time out. You know, Josh Hubbard had an off night, and you know that's what shooters do. Sometimes it doesn't fall for them. One of 11 from the field, I think. Yeah, only 3 points for him. You look at Tolu's line, you think, wow, he really carried this team. But a lot of those points came late in the game when the outcome had already been decided. So for Mississippi State, they've got to find that identity again, because they play a Vanderbilt team this week, and you covered them yesterday, and you know that they're not a very good basketball team. But they play pressure-free because nobody expects them to win anytime they're on the court, and they're going to win some games. And every team in the conference is looking at them as a landmine right now. You look at Vanderbilt and you're like, guys, we cannot lose that game if we want to play postseason basketball. And that's where State is this week. They've got to escape the trap that is Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I agree with you on Tolu Smith's numbers. A little deceiving. He finishes with 26 points and 8 rebounds on 11 of 15 shooting in 28 minutes. But your point about a lot of those points being late, I think certainly matters. Sometimes you got to do more than just look at the box score. To me, there's something else, though, that is concerning with Tolu Smith. He was a poor free throw shooter a year ago, worked a lot on getting better from the free throw line. And when he came back from injury over the first few games back, he was in the 80% range from the free throw line, which is phenomenal. But he struggled at the line against Alabama on Saturday. He struggled at the line last night, went just 4 for 8. Man, you just don't want to see free throws. And Mississippi State only had 10 total free throws in the game last night. They hit 6 of 10. So, you know, a little bit different type game, whereas Kentucky goes 23 of 27 from the foul line in that game last night. You just don't want to see missed free throws rear their ugly head and be the reason that you come up short in a close game, like happened against Alabama on Saturday.
That's what happened against Alabama, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened against Alabama. So, yeah, that's just one of the things. State right now, I just feel like they're that loss of identity, and we go into this a lot more detail in tomorrow's Thunder and Lightning podcast. They just aren't playing the same style of basketball that made them successful a season ago, and they've got to find a way to get back to that, because I think in most ways they are a very similar team to what they were last year. Basically, it's the same team with the addition of Josh Hubbard, and Hubbard can be that guy who gets you over the hump when you know you're only scoring 63, 64 points a game. Well, here comes Hubbard to give you another 10, 11 points. But if you're going to be giving up 75, 80 points a game like they've done these past few times out, that's going to make that kind of irrelevant.
So a difficult start to league play for Mississippi State, a 1-3 start. They lose on the road to South Carolina. The win out of that group is number 5 Tennessee. They win that one 77-72. They lose 82-74 to Bama. They lose last night 90-77 on the road against Kentucky. So, to your point a second ago, this one on Saturday against Vanderbilt is huge, because these are the next 5 after Vanderbilt. Got to go on the road to Florida. And say what?
Quad one
opportunity. Florida seems to be a different team at home than they are on the road. At home, Florida has a really close loss to Kentucky and a win over Arkansas. On the road, they've been blown out at Ole Miss and blown out at Tennessee. After that, It's Auburn at home. That's a week from Saturday. Auburn's really
Quad
good.
one.
Auburn's
Then,
just
yeah.
no other way to slice it. They're really good. Then a road trip to Alabama. So second time to face Alabama in about a 2-week span.
Well, you
and
missed
then
one.
Georgia at home.
You missed one.
Oh, I'm sorry. After the Auburn game, a road trip to Ole Miss. Then
Quad
a road
one.
trip to Alabama.
Quad one.
Then back home against Georgia.
That's quad two, right?
Georgia's better than I thought they were going to be this year.
They've played pretty well to this point. So, but yeah, after this game, Richard, they play 4 straight quad one games, and I don't think they're going to win them all. But man, if they can get 2, they could be 2-2, which would put them at 6-6 in the league. I think that would be reasonable. You know, that would be okay. So that's not right. 6-6, not right, but
No,
whatever.
they
Around
would
500 in the league.
Yeah, they'd be 3-5.
4-4.
If they go 2-2
3 and
in their
5.
next 4 games, they're 1-3 right
But 3
now.
and 5, 3 and 5, having played Alabama twice, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Auburn, isn't terrible.
And having your road game against Ole Miss out of the way as well.
Yeah. The schedule lightens up for State a little bit after that, but they've got to find. But you got to get wins too. It's not enough just to play these big games. You got to win a couple of them as well.
Yeah. I was looking at State's net a little while ago, and there's an. You know, I think I understand what the net ranking is. We've talked about it so much. Mississippi State's in good shape, right? They're at 34 in the net right now. But I was looking, I was like, all right, what's the difference in Mississippi State's resume right now and Ole Miss's? Because Ole Miss is 15-2 overall, Mississippi State's 12-5, and yet Mississippi State is 26 spots better in the net than Ole Miss is. So, to me, the big difference is Mississippi State being 6-0 in neutral site games. Because when you get into the quads, State is 1-3 in quad one games. So they've played 4 of them, but have lost 3. Ole Miss is 1-1.
And in those games, Washington State is currently 51. They had jumped up into the 50s. State had a second quad one win earlier this week. They've dropped down to 51. That game all year long, can be a game that goes back and forth between quad one, quad two.
Yeah, and that win for Ole Miss over UCF on the road is continuing to hold up. In the last, week, UCF's got a win at home against Kansas and a win on the road against Texas.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about horns down at some point. Like that, what it feels like a weary conversation, but yeah, we'll talk about it.
A weary conversation.
We're not classless like that. We're not going to do that.
It sounds like the best conversation to have.
We can do it. I just mean weary in the fact, like, how long have we been talking about horns down and how big a deal that is or isn't?
But you had a coach cussing in the handshake line, cussing at players on another team because they dared do it.
Have some class, he said over and over again.
We don't do that expletive.
Quad 2. Mississippi State's 4-1, Ole Miss is 3-1, so very similar there. Quad 3, Ole Miss 5-0, State 3-0. Quad 4, Ole Miss 6-0, Mississippi State 4-1. So
that means that Southern has dropped into a quad 4 loss at this point.
So there's not a ton of difference in the resumes from that standpoint. I mean, the only real difference is Mississippi State's 6 neutral site wins with no losses. And so some value in those. And then the other difference is Ole Miss has 3 fewer losses and 3 more wins than Mississippi State. But the Bulldogs, the net formula certainly likes Mississippi State more than it likes Ole Miss right now.